Sam, do you think this is Man City twisting the arm of the Premier League before the November court? Do you think this is just a case of like Man City want to guarantee that there is a settlement that happens, and instead of actually like because, as Terry says, there is no win even for Man City. If Man City win this case, the Premier League basically might get destroyed in terms of like the image and other clubs, and Newcastle might overspend. Do you think that's just twisting their
This
arm?
for
I'm
me is the
seriously
other
don't
side of the
understand.
argument because Mo, I'm listening to you both talk, and I think we're in agreement. And even yesterday, I got to the conclusion where I'm just like, you know what, let's just wait for this court thing, see
Yeah.
what happens, so we can all just come collectively together and just say like, okay, this is what's happened. But the thing that confuses me is the following: from a financial perspective, it would probably damage the Premier League if they were to charge Manchester City, because that means Manchester City probably get relegated, stripped of their titles. It means like, blah, blah, blah. Like we're talking about the harshest of the harsh punishments. They start the season on like minus 25, whatever it is. So like, this damages the Premier League because whether we like it or not, over the last 10, 15 years, Manchester City have amassed some form of global fan base. Now, I'm not saying that obviously they're supported less than like Liverpool, United, Arsenal, Chelsea, but they're supported more than like Wolves and Palace, if you get what I'm saying. Like if you go to Malaysia, you're more likely to find a City fan than a Wolves or a Palace fan. Same thing if you go to Brazil, Argentina, etc. So like, stuff like this is where like, okay, so low key, maybe if the Premier League do charge Man City, then it damages the Premier League a little bit. And this is why the outcome of this is a little bit confusing. Like I don't know where this will go to. And at the end of the day, I'll go back to what I said at the start of the stream. This all could have been dealt with 2 years ago. As soon as you come out and say there's irrefutable evidence, okay, no problem. So if someone accuses me of punching Terry in the face, my irrefutable evidence is I've literally not even been in the UK over the last 3 years. Done. I would settle it in 30 seconds. I'm like, yo, I've never left I've never been to the UK over the last 3 years. There is no way of me physically getting into an altercation with Terry. So your accusation is 100% wrong. That's irrefutable evidence. Irrefutable means no one can rebuttal it. No one can come back and say, but this. Irrefutable evidence means it's 100% crystal clear. Why don't you just release this irrefutable evidence so we can get this shit sorted with? But for some reason, even Man City fans are defending their club by going like, "Oh yeah, if the police accused you of having cocaine in the house, would you let them come search you?" And yeah, I would, because there is no cocaine in my house. That's why you're welcome. Come search the whole house, Habibi. I'll help you. There's no cocaine over here, so you will see why I'm innocent. So if you have irrefutable evidence, just present it to the entirety of the planet so we can get the shit done with.
In fairness, I have seen a lot of City fans online in the last couple of days, though, talk about how sort of wary they are and tired of this situation. And I understand why. But I think for other football fans, if you just put aside for a minute, City are cheats, City are this, City are that, that's not really the rhetoric I go with. I'm confused about a lot of things. I want to understand a lot more. But this has such a huge ramification on the game. And then you see people clutching at straws talking about how a Newcastle fan tweeted this today saying, remember when the Glazers bought United, they loaned the money from AIG, and then they had AIG as their sponsors, and many of the Glazers sat on the board. So they're saying, well, that's an associated, that's like an associated sponsor. Well, there was no rule against associated sponsors back then. But what Man United weren't doing was backfilling the money. The Glazers weren't giving money to AIG and having it funneled through to Manchester United. So there's people going, oh, so Man United did it first. No, we're not doing what you were accused of doing. And yes, there's probably been many occasions where clubs have had friends at a company that have sponsored them. They've now got rid of that. So that impacts everybody at the same time. But also, they've now banned the way the Glazers bought Man United. But Man United haven't sued them to say that's unlawful. We want to put more debt on the club. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the Glazers, to be honest, but this is what happens in life. Not every law and every rule that exists today has always existed. New things come in as the landscape changes. The money in football 30 or 40 years ago, in my opinion, wasn't big enough. The debts couldn't be run up to a point that could annihilate football. But now, and someone put this comment in, and it's so interesting. They said, Terry, you work in finance, right? I used to. You should know that this law is against UK competitive competitive practices. Well, I don't know that because I'm not a lawyer, first and foremost. But I hear a lot of these claims that it's anti-competitive, let teams spend what they want. And I sit there and deep it. Now, everyone's either a multi-millionaire or a billionaire owner of these Premier League clubs, pretty much, barring Luton, I think, who are fan-owned. But there's still a hierarchy within money. Now, because we're all working class and relative to billionaires, we're all poor. We're all brokies compared to billionaires. If you've got £1 billion or you've got £400 billion, the guy with £1 billion is poor in comparison. And what will happen if you allow, and this is what I hear people saying, Terry, you've got to allow it to be competitive by letting people spend what they want. You will only create the exact same situation, but with different teams. So if I remove myself from it as a Man United, but by the way, Ineos now part own us. Ineos could afford to spend almost as much as anybody else. So my club's in a relatively comfortable situation. Because if all this happens, Ineos could sponsor us £1 billion on our front of our shirts, and Man United financially are in the best situation we've ever been in. And by the way, that's still a drop in the ocean to them as well. So I'm not sitting here with broke owners and worried. But all that would happen is Man United would stay up near the top. Chelsea probably would. City would. Newcastle would. In over 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years, the same argument would happen again, where teams that only have owners who are worth 800 million go, we just can't compete because the owners of 400 billion are able to turn around to Mbappe and go, £30 million a week to play for us. All you are doing is increasing the amount of money that can be spent, and you are still going to have a richer and poorer team. So there has to be a better solution than just let everybody spend what they want.
There has to be a balance.
Let me just take this again. My club, Man United, you're just jealous. I want my club to run better. Man United financially are not going to be damaged, whether there's limitations or whether you can spend what you want, because our income is that good and is that big. The point I'm making is that you would still have a hierarchy within the game. So from my point of view, it's just, you remember that argument about VAR? Someone shouldn't be allowed to be offside by an inch. We should extend it so there could be daylight. I was like, yeah, but if there's daylight, they can still be offside by an inch. There can be 1 inch of daylight. And people will moan about that. And that's the problem I have with this whole argument, is that I understand if people really want it to be competitive, then they should make every Premier League team only be able to spend exactly the same amount of money on salaries and player transfers. Then it's going to be based on how good the players you buy are and how good your manager is. That's if you really want to make it completely competitive. Everyone's capped spending 50 million a year and 60 million a year on wages. But the irony is the big teams are never going to, even the smaller teams aren't going to vote that in. So that's the issue you've got here. But letting people spend willy-nilly is not competitiveness.
And that's the thing that I want to ask different teams. Fans. I want to ask the City fans on the chat something. And you guys can be honest. If Ineos sponsor Man United this summer, and their sponsorship value is £1 billion a year, and essentially they go sign the top 5 players in the world right now, and they do it again next summer, and the summer after, and the summer after, and the summer after, and they win 5 league titles in a row. Will you not say anything? Of course you will say something. So just because you're the club that's doing it does not mean that, you can just ignore it completely because it's the football club that you support and it's the football club that you enjoy. At the end of the day, FFP was brought in for a reason. It's in the name, financial fair play. It's just about making a certain level of playing field where we can all compete, where the Premier League can be competitive, where you can go back 12 years ago, where it was like Man United won it, City won it, Chelsea won it, Arsenal won it, like Leicester won it. Like it's just that competition that makes the Premier League so attractive for everyone around the world to see. But if Man City keep winning the league every season, I mean, let's be honest. I'm gonna give you a quick example just based on players this summer. I mean, there is people coming out and saying, Rodrigo might want to leave Real Madrid now that Mbappe has signed for Madrid. Objectively, yesterday I said the only club that can actually go to Rodrigo, offer him the money package that is required and all this is Manchester City. And you know what's funny? Mourinho said it when he was Spurs manager about 4 years ago. He says, if you don't implement this FFP stuff correctly, might as well just let the circus be a circus. Because now what's going to happen is this whole thing could turn into a shit show, and you could see clubs spending 500, 600 million in one summer.
And most other sports that have super wealthy owners, basketball, the NFL, Formula One, have caps. They have caps because They understand that things could get completely
well,
utterly out of control. There's a comment here that was sent in by
Yeah.
Sebastian, and it's probably one of the best. Very good breakdown. It says this. He says the speed limit on your road is 50 miles an hour. He says it's always been 50 miles an hour. You purchase a Formula One car and you get caught driving at 200 miles an hour. Now you're angry because it feels like Volvo and Volkswagen owners are plotting against you. And there's an element of that when it comes to City saying that they feel like the sort of they're under sort of tyrannical reign. Go on.
I wanna add something. I think I'm talking to City fans. Most of you guys are not logical, and you turn into lawyers. And if you just use your brain a little bit and think about this, and think about why you don't want the assessment for the sponsorship deal, you will get the answer yourself without us talking about it on the football terrace or reading anything. It's because you want to inflate. You want to inflate the sponsorship deal. The fact that Terry said that Ineos can sponsor them for $1 billion, the difference between just one family in Dubai and Ineos, right, is 7 times the net worth of the royal family of just one family in Emirates by Ineos. And Ineos is a company. Terry knows that there is something called internal audit, external audit in the families in the Gulf. And you guys don't know that. These people own the money. They can spend however they see fit. Any Man City fan that just tell us, and I'm talking about only the legal case that happened a couple of days ago or yesterday, this doesn't make any sense unless the club literally want to inflate the commercial deals. You want to keep it like there is no, you can tell yourself whatever, you do whatever makes you sleep well at night. There is no other explanation for Man City going against this law other than you want to inflate the sponsorship deal, because if their market value, right, you would be saying, I don't care about this law because it follows me and it follows everybody else. Man City, I don't know why Man City fans don't want to understand this point of view. All of you turn into lawyers, but you don't know this is competing in the UK. Yeah, I am not a lawyer. All I'm saying is that I'm a logical man. Liverpool can get a sponsorship deal from X worth 20 million. You can go for that same sponsorship deal to your cousin, same exact company, and say, I want it for 100 million. If you go against that, you don't want it to be fair. Your club doesn't want it to be fair. It's very simple. There is no there is no law. There is no Terry trying to explain the finances. There is no Osam explaining to you anything. Everyone from City fans that go against this, you know that your club wants to inflate the commercial deals, right? And you just don't want to admit it. Very simple. Done. Over. Move. It's ridiculous.
I want to go to some of these super chats here. Patrick here says City quitting the Premier League does nothing but enhance the argument that they are a manufactured club. Foregoing tradition and history in the name of chasing revenue is what their legacy would become, and fans couldn't refute it. Well, that is one of the claims in the newspapers today, that Hussein, that they could quit the Premier League and
Good.
and sort of try and reform the Super League somewhere.
Okay, that's fine by me. Hey, quit the Premier League. If they quit the Premier League, they have proven everything we have said on the football terrace over the last 2 years. Everything I've said on the football terrace, I'm not going to claim what others said. Everything I've said on the football terrace is true. Well, why you think I'm going to sit up here and cry if they leave the Premier League? Good, bro. That's fine. You leave the Premier League. Now give me back my titles. You get me? Give Terry his titles. Give Arsenal fans their titles, and we can keep it stepping. I'm good with that. By the way, if you leave the Premier League, that's an admission of guilt.
You don't
If
want
Terry
them to leave the
accuses
Premier
me,
League.
if Terry accuses me of stabbing the football terrace in the back, and my reaction is I'm going to leave the football terrace tomorrow, it's an admission of guilt. Simple as that.
You don't want them to leave the Premier League. They add value to the Premier League.
I genuinely couldn't care less if they leave the Premier League.
They add
Wallahi,
value to the Premier League.
But I look at it this way. I honestly don't. I look at it the other way. I get in the short term, Mo. If City were to be expelled from the Premier League in the short term, it would probably knock financially. There's definitely some nations that have got huge City followings, etc. But I'm going to be blunt. A lot of the people that support City would find another club pretty quickly if City weren't around anymore. I don't believe. I believe they would. I truly believe. I'm not talking about the born and bred. I'm not talking about the Patricks. I'm not talking about the Hamzas who have supported him since they were kids. I'm not talking about the V's that come on this show who are in their 30s and supported him since they were kids. I'm talking about the people that in the last 3 or 4 years have chosen to support them. I'm talking about kids that are not going to understand any of this. If City are not around anymore, they will find new football clubs. In the short term, it might impact the Premier League's finances, but I think in the medium to long term, it strengthens the Premier League by upholding its rules. And if they are to win this, and I don't know whether they will or not, and I'm not a legal expert. Some people say they will, some say they won't. I'm not getting involved in that because I don't know. If they win this court case, it puts them in such a strong position. If they lose it, my fear if they lose it is that the Premier League might not even be here in 5 years' time.
Yeah, it's going to be done. I actually think it's going to be. I think if they win this league.
By the way, but City have also set a precedent here. City are suing the Premier League now. Officially on paper, they're suing the Premier League for something completely separate from the 115 charges. There's a lot of people that don't think that's true. I think it's a premeditated attack to try and weaken that stance. They've now set a bit of a precedent for suing and Premier League clubs suing Premier League entities. If you're suing the Premier League, you're actually suing your fellow competitors as well, because the Premier League, I mean, City are the Premier League. They're 1/20th of it. There are a lot of clubs now that are going to say, okay, you sued the Premier League for damages. If they don't win this court case and then they lose the 115, there could be a lot of football clubs that start suing Man City for damages in exactly the same way. But if they're guilty and it's huge amounts of money. So look, I think if City wins, could end up killing the Premier League, which ironically will ruin City anyway by proxy. Or this could end up being a really, it's why I think there's some City fans online that are like, oh, why have we done this? Because if we lose now, you know, our club's at risk. So look, it's gonna be a crazy one.